What's up, everybody? My name's Nathan with Tree of Life Woodworking here in Phoenix, Arizona. And I have a 3-car garage workshop. I am a one-man show, so I do it all myself. And I build custom high-end furniture. So I want to show you around, show you a little bit about what I do, my tools, how I get things done. If you saw my last video, it was in June of 22, so it's been almost 2 full years. So there's some new toys that I'm excited about showing you. So let's take a look around. First thing I got to show you guys, though, is this view. It doesn't get much better than this. This is right outside of my garage doors, just outside of my house. Beautiful desert view here in North Phoenix. All right, so got to start off with lumber, right? So directly behind your field of view is a 2-car garage door, and it would come right in through here, loaded up on the racks like so. This white oak is coming out this week because that's for my current commission, which is a dining banquette, so that'll be used. Otherwise, I have a little bit of miscellaneous storage as well. Like this is my vacuum press. I have a 6 CFM professional vacuum press. Very nice unit. I also have a couple more air filtration units that you see there that aren't in use yet. I scored those for like $100-something from Facebook Marketplace each, and they're like $500 units. So I already have one up on the ceiling here. So I'm going to be mounting these, have better air filtration when I get around to it. Other than that, just some miscellaneous storage. On the left side, there's a man door over here. What I'm actually planning on improving with this whole thing in the near future is moving all of this wood storage outside. So I have a 10-foot by 30-foot concrete slab right outside that door. I want to put like a 12-foot long shed by like 6 or 8 feet wide out there. Just keep all the lumber, all the odds and ends out there. Keep my shop clutter-free. So that will hopefully happen soon. And then what I want to do with this space after is get a Capex into a miter station. So right now, I can't really justify the space that a miter station takes up. So I cut my material on the floor. I have a piece of plywood that I'll stick down, and I use my track saw, and I'll cut everything here roughly. But if I cleared up this wall, a miter station would definitely be a luxury I could afford to have again. All right, so after I get the lumber off the rack, after I use my track saw and I cut it to a rough size, next places I'm going is my jointer right here. This is a Grizzly 12-inch joiner. It's their G0834, 5 horsepower, beast of a machine in all the best ways. 92 cutter heads, right? Does everything you need it to do. Some people hate on Grizzly. Honestly, this thing's amazing. It's one of my dream machines, and I never plan to change it out unless I, for some freak reason, decide to go up to like a 16-inch or something. But it's amazing. I also keep these magnetic feather boards on here. Something, if you saw my last video, you may have noticed, and I'll put those basically like so. And if I'm edge joining something fairly tall, I will keep these with pressure against the fence, and that helps me edge joint long boards or tall boards, for example. Like if I'm doing an 8-quarter board and it's 10 feet long, you want some extra hands helping you have the pressure in the right places. So that's a great tip. Use those on your joiner. Mag Switch makes these. Other than that, I use these micro jig pads. They're very, very grippy just to get everything through the joiner. I also use this, who makes this? Fast Cap, just a little magnetic square. See how my fence is before I use it. But that's basically my joiner setup. And then of course, hooked up to the dust collection going up here, and it's great. So this is where things go. All right, so just a couple feet over from the joiner, which is right over here, after we have a flat board on one face and a 90-degree square edge, right? We take it over to the planer. This is gonna give us our other flat face. So this is a 20-inch Grizzly G1033X. It's 5 horsepower, spiral head. Beast of a machine. I got it a few months back in auction for half the price of new. It was too good of a deal to pass up. Very, very dirty at the time. I had to clean it up quite a bit. Totally worth it though. Just yesterday put on a Wixie digital readout that you see here, and this is the other hardware for it on that side. And that basically gives you the exact thickness that you're cutting at any time. So if I'm running boards through and I'm trying to nail an exact thickness, like maybe I'm duplicating a part I did prior, you just use your digital calipers, take it to your part, come back here, dial it in, and you have an exact replica. So it's It's accurate down to the 5,000th of an inch, so it's quite good. And then I also have the Wood Whisperer planer bracket shelf here, and I just use a scrap walnut sheet good I had laying around to make the shelf. I'll make this something nicer in the future, but this is handy just to have places to set boards, right? When you're running stuff through, you go to the other side, you just set your board on here, come back around, right? Just save you a little bit of time and energy there. It's very handy. But this is where I go after having a flat face and a matching edge, and this is where we get it down to the thickness we need to proceed. All right, so after we have a flat board, it's been thickness to the thickness we want. We bring it over to the table saw, right? We're going to set up the fence. We're going to cut the opposing edge. Now every side is flat and square to one another. So that's the next step there. Currently have a forest rip blade in here. I have several different forest blades for different purposes, like one that's a flat top grind for joinery so you don't get those bat ears. I have dado stack. I have a blade for sheet goods that has a high tooth count from forest. So different blades for different purposes, but this one's the rip blade. It has very few teeth, I believe 24, and it's great. And then I have a Grizzly overarm dust collector here, like so. I got off of Amazon some dust boot material like people use for CNC, glued it on there, and that prevents dust from spraying out that side, which if you've used one of these without it, you'll know it sprays a lot of dust to the side, so that makes dust collection way better. And yeah, easy to move out of the way. I can either flip it up, I can move it that way, and it's out of the way for me. If I'm not ripping, a couple other things I do over here. Woodpecker's exact 90 miter gauge. So since I don't have a miter station, I cut my parts to length at the table saw. This keeps it, like it says, exact 90, right? It's dead on square, so when I cut a board, I know it's good. It also extends pretty far out to the side, so that is very useful. Another thing I do over here is, this is my L fence, which of course made out of walnut. Everything's walnut, right? So if you have not seen an L fence, I recommend looking up some videos on it because it's extremely helpful. You can do tapers on here. You can flush things up on here. You can just do angled cuts on here. It's really helpful for a lot of different things. And this specific fence, it actually does a lot of different purposes as well. But L fence is one of the capabilities of this jig, and it's very nice to have. I think it's WM Woodworks that makes and sells these plans, so I just built what he created, and it's perfect. Couldn't ask for anything else. Aside from that, you see I have a lot of storage here for my table saw, and not just for my table saw, I keep various things in here. But utilizing the table saw space, I made storage, and it's walnut and has the grain flow from drawer to drawer as well. So that's just a nice little touch. I like making my shop look nice. I don't want my shop furniture to be cheap and crappy. I want it to look nice, so that way I'm inspired when I come into my own shop. I don't want to build nice stuff for everyone else and not have anything for me, right? So just a little touch over here. So now we've kind of hit the main parts of what first happens when I get the boards, flatten it, plane it, cut it to size, right? After that, it gets a little ambiguous where things go from there, but likely right after that, I'm going to be doing some glue ups. So here's the clamps I have. I have a lot of Bessie K-body parallel clamps. I also more recently got Semble clamps, which Woodpecker sells. Gotta be honest with you, I can't at this time recommend these. I got my first batch of 8, which were not cheap. I mean, it was probably ballpark $450, $500. And within 2-3 uses, all 8 of those clamps broke and stopped working. Basically, they wouldn't retain their pressure. They would just pop out, so you couldn't use them. Luckily, I will say for the customer service, they sent me 8 more clamps. I just haven't had a lot of time to go through and give these the tests that I need to have the confidence in them. So I'm very skeptical of these right now. If they work well, though, I will say they're a cool design. What I like is they have these handles that go sideways. So even though I'm only 31. I get some wrist pain every now and then, so you can twist these to get your pressure versus going like this. That's what makes my wrists sore. And of course, I know you shouldn't be cranking down on clamps, blah, blah, blah. But there's a time and place for everything. And when you want pressure, this makes it easier. So great design. It's just still undetermined whether or not they're actually going to last. Other than that, though, I have my F-style clamps. I have some hand screw clamps, some track clamps, a little bit of everything, right? But this is where all the clamps go. So if you did see my last shop tour, at that time, I believe I had just gotten this Woodpecker's router table, and it is incredible. Definitely worth the money. So what I have here is the Woodpecker's table hardware, their fence, their micro adjust, but I have the Jessam made Incra router lift and the Incra clean sweep cabinet down here. And the reason I did that is because this Jessam Incra router lift, it has these plates that have cutouts specifically for dust to get more airflow where the collet is, so it can basically suck everything down. And believe me, it works incredible. And my dust collection, which I'll show you in a bit here, it gets over 2,000 CFMs of air right here at the collet. So everything's getting sucked away. Of course, there's also the dust behind, right? Just have to open up the fence here, and dust also goes behind. So there's two forms, right? It's going back or it's going straight down, but it works great. No dust escapes really anywhere. As far as the router motor, I use the SpinRite motor, which is like 3¼ horse or 3.5. It's sold by Woodpeckers. And it's a beast. It has a great collet system. It has great power. It has the slow starts. And I have the switch here. Right, so you can see that nice smooth startup. So this thing's a dream to use. Before this, I had like a little cheap Bosch benchtop router table. I think it's called like the RA1181. And while it did the job, this thing makes everything nicer, more accurate, just a joy to use. The only thing I want to do really is what I talked about last time, is build out this into a cabinet, which I will use all walnut for. Have nice drawers and storage and all that stuff, so it's all enclosed. Still haven't gotten around to that. But for now, all of my bits are down here. I use these Woodpeckers rack bit things. They can hold either a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch bit in them. It's nice to hold your bits straight up. But yeah, this is the router area. So this is where I put on chamfers. It's where I can do dados. It's where I can do, you know, any of the various router tasks like flush trimming and templates and so on. So this is used frequently all throughout a project for me. All right, so since the last shop tour, this is definitely my most exciting shop tool purchase, which is the Laguna LT18 bandsaw. One of the few that Laguna makes that's actually made in Italy, has much finer tolerances than your normal Laguna bandsaw, which are, you know, usually made in like Thailand or Taiwan or whatever. But this thing's amazing, you know, 5 horsepower, got a big old Resaw King blade on here currently, but I have several different blades for different uses. Has a foot brake to quickly kill the power and stop the blade when your hands are busy. Just does everything I need it to do. The one thing I want so bad, but is almost impossible to get your hands on, is a Laguna, I think it's called the Drift Master fence. Wood Whisperer did a video where he installed one, and it looks amazing for resawing and other uses. So trying to get my hands on that. Otherwise, there's a guy I talked to on Facebook who added a second dust port down here. So he created like a plywood jig, had a second 4-inch port down here. He said the combination of that and the 4-inch port back there really helps dust collection. Otherwise, that's really the only downside of this machine, and really any bandsaw, right, is it's hard to contain all the dust. But it's an amazing machine. Also has a really weird mobile system. So it has this pole, and you stick it down here. And now my tool is mobile, and I can pull it wherever. But kind of weird, I don't really like having to have a separate thing. I just usually like mobile bases where, you know, you click a thing down and you move it and you unclick it, but having to keep this around works, but not my favorite. Here's my newest toy. This thing showed up last week, another one of my dream tools. It's a South Bend sander. It's a 6-inch by 108-inch edge sander and has a lot of features. So one thing that differentiates it from any others that I found is a touch screen for the speed. It can go all the way up to 3,300 RPMs or as low as like 500. Yep, that's the bottom speed. And yeah, so you can sand your edges here of pieces. You can do even the ends of your boards here using like the miter gauge. Other things it does, this whole thing can go flat. So when it's all the way flat and you have it locked down, basically you can flatten boxes or whatever you need to do for that sanding operation. Or you can put it in any angle in between. Like if you want to sand 45 degrees to touch up your miter joints, you can do that. Other than those main functions, this door opens and now you can use this table to do curved pieces or round pieces. Also right here, there is, this cap comes off and I can put this spindle on. There's 3 different size spindle drums. And now I can raise this table up and really work curves even better using the spindle sander attachment. So that's another option it gives. So a lot of different sanding capability on this. They also did not skimp on dust collection for this thing. There is a 4-inch port here and a 4-inch port over there. And with my dust collection, it really captures it. So this thing I plan to use constantly on my projects now that I have it. I was really excited to get it. It's going to be a huge time saver. Just to briefly touch on my dust collection system, I have the Clearview CV1800 with the upgraded impeller size. When I looked at their website, they no longer offer the CV1800. Now they have like a CV1700, but similar, 5 horsepower motor, sucks a lot of air. So let me give you a quick rundown of the system, the piping. So that's the one main arm that goes down. We have the jointer, also straight down, then it goes over to the table saw. So that's one arm. And then going the opposite way, that's how we get over to that other main drop. And that goes to the sander, it goes to the bandsaw, it goes to the planer, it goes to the router. So that one has a lot of branches. But what you'll see is that they all have blast gates. So I could probably get away with having a couple open at a time, but I generally only have one open at a time because I want to suck all the dust possible from whatever machine's creating it. So that is essentially my dust collection system. And to be honest, this Clearview is way more powerful than I need for a shop this size. I just like to buy things where I won't have to upgrade later. Also, another quick one. This is just one of my little French cleat walls. I have my Festool track saw here. I have some old Ryobi tools here that I still use a little bit, like nail gun, jigsaw, drill, staple gun. I also have my Woodpecker's auto line drill guide, various screwdrivers, hammers, wrenches, that sort of thing. That's a Sawzall. Got my wrenches, little level, Forstner bits, and my Festool router guide there. So just various storage. I like to keep things easily accessible for the French cleat walls rather than tucked away in a box somewhere. All right, so at various different stages, the work is going to come over here. And this is really the main event of the workshop for me, the most exciting space in the workshop for me. This is my oversized Rubo workbench. If you saw my first shop tour, you would have seen it was just 2 maple slabs sitting on sawhorses, and it was like that for 3.5 years. And finally in September of 23, just a few months back, I completed it and it's amazing. So for the leg vise, I of course have bench crafted. So this is called their Glide leg vise, and obviously it's called the Glide for a good reason. Very smooth, very effective. That clamps pieces in, and then you can use your hand planes. You can do anything you want there when it's locked down. It also has the tail vise over here that works in function with the dog holes here. So I'll show you how that works real quick. So with the tail vise, all along this first row, I have these bench dogs that pop up. So basically, you would put it in between, and on the vise side, there's 1, 2, right? So they pinch. After you get it locked down, and you can plane. Some nice little shavings. So just another method to hold your work, right? When it comes to all this hand tool precision work, it all revolves around one thing: your work being immobilized while you work. All right, so what if you have a very long board and you need to lock it down? If you only stick it in the leg vise, something long like this, it's gonna have so much leverage, it's gonna wobble. So you would take a bench dog, use your sliding dead man, so this thing slides all along the bottom freely. Stick it in one of the holes there like so. Boom, now your board's immobilized. So that's kind of how the sliding dead man works. It's really all it's good for is holding long stuff. Otherwise it just sits there looking pretty all the time. I'll show you one of my specialty hand tools. So this is a shooting plane made by Veritas, Lee Valley. And this is the shooting board they sell. Of course, you can make a shooting board at home, and you can even use a regular plane, a heavy plane preferably on its side, to do the shooting, and it works just fine. But if you have the money, a shooting plane is very, very nice. It goes in the track like so. And this is for when the absolute most precision matters. You're not going to use this for a lot of things, but when it absolutely matters and you need to dial something in, maybe it doesn't fit by 2/1000ths of an inch, 1/1000th of an inch, you bring it over here, not the table saw. So you put a board up, and it's just going to take these little slivers off, basically. It's going to do two things. Number one, take off like the smallest amount of material possible, right? But then number two, so it's also making this perfectly square to the edge. So if there's any deviation, you can do a pass or two, and you know it's square. So this is for the finer things, not for every piece. I'll just briefly show you what I use for chisels. So my main chisels are these Narex Richter set. The Richter set is special because it's like cryogenically hardened, I think they call it. It's a much harder blade than the normal ones I have on my wall. And like this one, let me see if I can have this show up. I have beaten on this thing and the edge is still beautiful. It's like the hardness really does make a difference versus my normal Narex chisels. They crumble, they crack, they chip. But these, I have not had to sharpen them yet, and I have pounded on them and pounded on them for mortises and all sorts of stuff. And there's no chips to be found. They're great. These ones here are a little bit more specialized. Most people don't have these. These are paring chisels. So number one, they're long. So if you're trying to get something, right, if you go up onto the handle, now your blade's up. So the benefit of the paring is you can go a lot further on a piece before you're impacted by that motion. These ones are not the Richter, though. I don't think they have Richter paring chisels. So those ones do, you know, crumble a little bit easier. But for paring operations, it's really no worry. You're not going to be pounding on them when you're paring. So those are good for those instances. But otherwise, these 7 are my go-to for virtually everything else. I'm not going to touch on everything on this wall, but I'll just show you what's over here. Got like my Japanese hand saws, got some woodpecker stuff. I will say I'm disappointed. These have faded to like a pink over time. I got these from the Wood Whisperer, Mark. I have rasps and chisels. This is the old chisel set. These are rasps that really don't get used frequently, but when you need a rasp, it's handy. My Wood is Good mallet. And then all my planes. So I have the shooting plane. I have the low angle jack. I have the 5.5. I have the smoothing planes, a low angle and a high angle. I have an old Stanley. I have a large, medium, and small shoulder plane. I have a Veritas low angle block plane. I have a regular block plane. I have card scrapers, a cabinet scraper. If you like card scrapers and you have not used this Veritas cabinet scraper, you need to get it. It's amazing. And then just some random stuff in here, spoke shave, stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of the hand tools. And then in here is the whole router plane kit from Veritas. Very nice router plane. Fits snugly in there. That's pretty much my wall. As far as the last couple odds and ends, I have really, really bright LED lights in here. These I got off of Amazon. The brand is, I think, called like Electico, and they're like 12,000 lumens or something insane. I think they're the 5000K color. They're amazing. It's like daytime in here, even if it's midnight. It can be kind of weird, actually, if you work late and then go inside. Other than that, I have a mini split. This is a Mr. Cool 24,000 BTU mini split. So in the summer, when it's literally 120 degrees outside, I can have this cranking and it'll be 70 in here without even insulating the walls. I have a Festool ETS EC, or what is it called? ETS EC 153, and then the Domino 500 in there. I also, down here, keep my Festool OF 1400 router and the large Domino. All right, y'all, that is it for today. Thanks for watching along. Again, I'm Nathan with Tree of Life Woodworking. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Tree of Life Woodworking AZ, or Instagram at Tree of Life Woodworking. I will be going full-time woodworking in about a year. I'm very close to making that happen, so stay tuned. When I go full-time, there will be a lot more YouTube content. Until then, what I can commit to is I'll answer every question in the comments, and if you want a deep dive on a certain tool, please let me know, and I will commit to doing that. So, thanks again, and then before we close out here, I'll just give you a quick pan of the room in case all the movement around to the different stations got a little confusing. And you may critique the workflow not being as efficient as possible, but there's only so much you can do in a 3-car garage. But I try. Have a good one, y'all.